Hey everyone, welcome back to another exciting Rocketblocks mock interview. Today we've got a brand new case titled Overnight Opportunity. In this scenario, a major international hotel chain called Oasis is presented with a unique opportunity due to New York City's unexpected ban on short-term rentals. The candidate is expected to analyze the market conditions resulting from this ban, including the impact on the broader hotel market in New York City. And joining us today is Matthew Calvert, who will be stepping into the interviewer's shoes. He's currently the director of methane results at Kairos Aerospace and previously worked as a consultant at BCG. Our brilliant candidate for today is Ben Wilson, currently a director at Alvarez and Marsal, who completed his MBA from University of Virginia's Darden School of Business. So without further ado, let's get started.
Hi, my name is Matthew Calvert. I am currently the director of methane results at Kairos Aerospace. Prior to that, I worked as a consultant in the BCG Chicago office for a couple of years. Before that, I got my MBA and Master's in Public Policy from Duke. I will be playing the interviewer today, and today I've got Ben Wilson with me. Ben, would love for you to introduce yourself.
Excellent. Thanks, Matty. Ben Wilson, currently a director with Alvarez and Marsal, based at Chicago. Prior to that was at Darden, received a master's in business as well as data science. And then prior to that, had a mix of careers with EY Parthenon and Grant Thornton in consulting.
Awesome. Ben, you ready to jump into the case?
Absolutely, man. Let's do it.
Great. So this is going to be a little bit of an interviewer-led case. So I'll be kind of transitioning us between segments.
Excellent.
Okay. Oasis Hotels is a major international hotel chain with 4 properties in New York City, and they're facing a unique opportunity. New York City just outlawed short-term rentals, resulting in 22,000 short-term properties being made illegal and becoming unavailable for lodgers effectively overnight. Now, Oasis would like your help. First, they want to know what the impact this might have on the hotel market in New York generally. Next, they want your recommendations on how they should respond to the shifting landscape. How would you help Oasis respond to this change?
Excellent. Okay. Thanks, Matty. So to kind of read that back to you, our primary client is Oasis Hotels. They have 2 primary objectives. The first, they want to understand the impact that this change is having on their market. And I'll get to that in a moment. And they also, second, want to know how they should respond, what actions should be taken. Specifically, this activity that has occurred is 22,000 short-term rental properties have been made illegal, specifically in the New York City market. Does that make sense? Do I have that right?
Yep, that sounds right to me.
Excellent.
A little bit more about their goals, just to make sure we're on top of this. They want to capitalize on this. And so their primary goal is to increase their market share and revenue by attracting former users of short-term rental services. And they also want to maintain their brand image and customer satisfaction levels while managing their potential increase in demand.
Okay. Makes sense. Good goal for them as well in terms of that market share revenue makes sense. And also in terms of brand image, customer satisfaction. Fantastic. I think I have a few more questions if I could, kind of dive in with you.
Yeah.
I understand I had a very short career in hospitality, and one of the typical drivers is average daily rate. So how much you're actually pricing out each hotel room. Do we have any understanding for Oasis Hotels, New York City market, as well as their competitors, what they might be pricing at currently?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the ADR for Oasis Hotels in New York City is $350. And the city's average ADR is $250. So Oasis Hotels is a little bit more upscale.
Okay, excellent. A little bit of pricing power then perhaps. Okay. So understanding that, there's also the other side of the revenue driver equation, which is usually the capacity. So how many people they're actually housing. Have they given us any understanding of how many or what's the max capacity their hotels can actually house in New York City?
Yep. So they have 1,000 rooms across 4 properties in New York City.
Excellent. Okay, fantastic. And then kind of a final question just to kind of solidify the revenue piece. Do we have an understanding of what their total revenue is, given that kind of $350 price at the ADR and the 1,000 rooms, whether I don't know how many of them are actually being used or what the typical volume capacity is?
So their average occupancy rate is 75% across the 365 days a year.
Excellent. Okay. Fantastic. I'll probably want to do some quick math on that later to understand kind of where they reside in their revenue. But if I could grab maybe a minute or two and plan out my approach, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, take your time.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. So I think I have an initial approach, and kind of the way I want to look at this is three primary categories. First, I want to look at the New York hotel market kind of holistically. Next, I want to think about Oasis Hotels, both from a financial and non-financial perspective. Can we compete? Can we take advantage of this opportunity? Then I also want to think about kind of like other considerations. We'll dive into that momentarily. So I really want to start with the hotel market. Specifically, I want to look at the market size in New York. So what's the total industry revenue? What's the total size of the hospitality market in New York? We kind of talked to a few drivers, occupancy rate, revenue per room. There's usually a loyalty and kind of food and bev piece is there as well. But what's that opportunity size look like? And where does this 22,000 rooms kind of fit into that? And how is that pie growing? Further on that, I also want to look at the competition. So outside of ourselves, there's naturally a number of large hotels in New York. There's the traditional big players like the Fairfields and Marriotts, but who else is there? How are they actually competing? What's their market share, but how do they differentiate in this market as well? And then further, I want to look at the customers. This is kind of like point and center. Customer primarily for the short-term rentals. What does that demographic look like? What features do they prioritize? And how does that fit in with traditional customers that are coming to New York? Are they perhaps less business focused and traveling during the week? Are they more traveling on the weekends? What appeals to them? So next, I want to think about the Oasis Hotel offering. Can we really compete in this? Specifically, I want to first look at financials. From a revenue perspective, are we pricing competitively? We're $100 above, it sounds like, the average in the market. So does that price appeal to this demographic? Can we actually take advantage of that? We talked about we have 1,000 rooms and 75%. So we have 25% occupancy left. From a volume perspective, is that enough? Do we need more occupancy? Do we need more volume? And then also want to think about kind of the mix. So do we offer experiences, other features that these short-term renters might want to come and do? Do we give tours and such? I also want to think about from a cost perspective, do we have any large debt that we're paying down primarily from a fixed cost perspective? So if we need to increase the volume size, do we have the ability to do that? And then even from a variable cost perspective, we're going to have an increase in volume of people, whether regardless we increase the capacity or not. So do we have the staff? Do we have everything that we need to actually be able to take advantage of it? Further, I want to think about how we differentiate. So we're $100 above in price. So we differentiate in other way. It sounds like quality perhaps, but do we have brand or features? What makes us so unique and special in the New York market? And then finally, I want to think about other considerations. So the considerations primarily go towards the approach, that kind of second question that we have to talk about. So initially, I want to think about digital marketing. Is this something in terms of promotion campaigns and attracting new customers that works for this kind of 22,000 short-term rental market? I also want to think about what types of experiences and packages would appeal. And then further, kind of the online presence. I imagine this is most likely a younger demographic. They probably appeal with online. So what can we do to actually work and attract this group? Further, and something more just to keep in mind, in the past week, you saw Biden really push into the affordability of apartments in New York and how there's a short-term crisis. So where is that going to grow or shrink this potential market in the future as we think about this? If I think about where I really want to start, though, it'd be really in terms of the hotel market and getting a better understanding of where these 22,000 properties be or like kind of exist in this greater market. Do we have any kind of understanding of what this hotel market looks like in New York currently?
Can you tell me a little bit more about like what you're looking for in terms of what the hotel market would be? Are you looking for the size, trends? What are you looking for here?
Yeah, so specifically what I want to think about is what's the total revenue size to capture in this market and how that 22,000 fits in. So I'm thinking about the total number of rooms and the average occupancy rates across, and then also even kind of the average ADR. We know it's about 250. And so where does that look like in terms of being able to price out what the total millions or billions that could be this New York hotel market? And, happy to market size if that would assist.
Yeah, that's a great question. And actually, the partner on the case wants to help Oasis get a good kind of lay of the land. And so I think estimating the size of the market for hotels in New York City, both in terms of total capacity as well as industry revenue per year, would be super helpful to start off with. It would be, interesting to understand how big we are and what piece of the pie we own in the New York market.
Excellent. Okay, let's do it. So the way I want to kind of structure this in terms of approach is I'll tell you kind of the equation I think I'll use, and then I'll fill in each of those dots and then calculate from there. So in terms of moving forward, I want to think about initially the number of New York hotels. I would probably multiply that by the average number of rooms per hotel. We kind of know where we are, but we'll extrapolate that across. That would give us total number of rooms. I then probably want to think about the average occupancy rate in terms of a percentage and multiplying that across the number of days per year. Given that it's New York, I imagine 365, the holidays are a big time for people to come. So I'm going to assume that the entire year is open for business. That should give us the total number of rooms, total room nights sold per year. I think it would be the better way to categorize that. And then multiplying that by the average ADR, I know that's eventually going to be 250, should hopefully give us what this market looks like. Okay, so let's dive into each of those. I want to start out with the number of New York hotels. Specifically, I'd like to be able to use one small area of New York and then perhaps extrapolate out from there.
Okay.
I would like to use Manhattan, given that it's kind of a center of business and tourism, and then work out from that direction. So I'm going to use some rough assumptions. Haven't been to New York in quite a while, but please let me know if I run a straight map. So I know that Manhattan is about 200 streets up and down. And then if I had to kind of think about from a cross perspective, about 10 avenues. So 200 times 10, that's going to give me about 2,000 blocks.
Yep.
Understanding that, I also want to think about probably in terms of number of hotels per block. And I imagine it'd probably be one hotel for every 4 to 5 blocks. I'm going to kind of skew towards 5. And so that would give me kind of a 2,000 blocks times 0.2 hotels per block on a per block basis here. And that would work into 400 hotels in this general area. So that would give me Manhattan. And then being able to extrapolate beyond that, I'm going to assume that Manhattan is this business hub, tourist hub, like we had referenced previously. I anticipate that I want to assign a percentage to that. So I'm going to assume that probably about 70% of New York City hotels specifically reside within Manhattan. Does that seem fair to you?
Yeah, I think those assumptions all make sense. I really liked how you got to those assumptions and didn't just throw them out at me. You walked me through your thinking. So I appreciate that.
Thank you. Okay, and so next step, we have the 400 hotels in Manhattan. 70% of them is divided by that 70% of hotels residing there. Quick math, that gives me 570 hotels in New York together collectively. So that's kind of like my population of hotels that I'll use. I also then reference being able to multiply that by my average number of rooms per hotel. I'm going to go ahead and assume that typical hotel is a bit smaller, about 200 rooms per hotel. I think, given that we have 4 properties and 1,000 rooms, that would mean that each of these hotels is a bit smaller than our average property. So we'll use 200 rooms. So we have the 570 New York hotels times 200 rooms per hotel. That's going to give me 114,000 rooms across New York. We know that our occupancy currently is 75%. I'm going to go ahead and use that just as kind of a directional point. And so what I want to do next is the 114,000 rooms times 75% times 365 days per year. That's going to give me kind of my next chunk analysis. And give me just one moment with that math, please. Okay. So what I'm looking at is from a total room nights sold per year, the summation of the 114,000, 75%, 365, we're looking at about 31.2 million room nights sold per year, which is hell of a number. But of course, we also want to attach a kind of financial figure to that. That average ADR that we had referenced in the kind of Q&A is about 250. So I'm going to use that as the baseline here. So it's going to be 31.2 million room nights sold per year. I'm going to multiply that by the 250. Give me just one moment. 31.2 times 25. We'll drop a 0 on it. That is about $7.8 billion annually from this direct hotel market in New York. And, if I think about kind of where the 22,000 rooms sits with that, 22,000, I'm going to compare that to the 114,000 rooms that we benchmarked earlier. It's nearly 20% of the overall market. So certainly a material portion of it. And if that's all of a sudden getting shrunk, so supply is decreasing from the traditional economics class, this is a big portion of revenue that's now up for grabs.
Yeah, it's a great point, and really liked your approach there, Ben. My question now is, how do you think Oasis should respond to this opportunity, keeping in mind what we discussed earlier?
Yeah, great question. I'm going to pull from some of my prior analysis and my framework as well. And the way I'm thinking about this is kind of internal operational enhancements and changes that we can make versus more external facing efforts, traditionally run marketing. So perhaps I can kind of hit you with the internal operational enhancements first. So initially I'm thinking capacity expansion. We only have 25% of our average kind of occupancy left. And it seems like we can probably fill more. There's a greater opportunity. So understanding there would be construction involved unless we kind of work with more inorganic growth and purchase someone. We really think about this as more of a long-term solution. A more short-term solution, I'd also want to think about pricing strategy. Specifically, it seems like there's an opportunity given the decreasing supply, yet same demand, to increase our price. I want to understand how much pricing power we have, but I'd also be considering, can we keep our existing customer base, or are we going to alienate them if we choose to increase price? But it seems like there's a pricing strategy piece here that we should take advantage of. I also want to think about kind of more external marketing efforts. So specifically, digital marketing. So can we ramp up our online efforts? Can we use targeted marketing campaigns? I'm thinking both social and non-social, maybe search as well, to be able to lure in this new customer base. Also want to think about more unique experiences. This is something I referenced previously, but I know when I travel, I always do the Airbnb experiences. I think it's a fantastic way to get involved with local businesses and meet more local people, especially as a tourist. And I imagine that my demographic probably appeals very similarly. Yeah. So I would love to see what we can do in terms of that and how that builds into our marketing. And then further and finally, I think I probably want to emphasize our differentiators. So what differentiates us from the other hotels in the market, the other nearly 80%? And where do we actually see ourselves being able to compete and pushing that through our digital marketing efforts?
Okay. Yeah, those are all great options, and I think will really help Oasis. And now your team's financial model suggests that occupancy for Oasis properties could jump from 75 up to 100%, essentially overnight. What's more is that the model suggests Oasis could support 100% occupancy while increasing price from $350 a night to $500 a night on average. What would the potential revenue impact of this change look like for Oasis?
Okay, very interesting. It certainly kind of alludes back to the points we were making about potential price and volume increase. So reading that back, we have an increase in price of $150 per night from the traditional $350 to our new price of $500, but then also additionally an increase in occupancy from that 75% to 100%. So the way I want to do this, I know that we have occupancy. I'm going to put the two models together. So our new model of 100% versus our original model of 75%. I want to multiply that by the number of rooms. Our rooms are going to stay the same for each piece at 1,000. I also want to then multiply that by the number of days per year, which is going to be 365 for each piece. And then further on that, I want to multiply by the price. And I know the price for the new model is going to be 500 versus the traditional original model, which is 350. So let's kind of work through this. So new model, I know 100% times 1,000 times 365, that's going to be 365,000. When I multiply that by 500, so 365 times 5, and then I'll add on the zeros, I am getting roughly 182, looks like $182.5 million for our new model with that price increase of 500 and that increase in occupancy. In terms of the original model, and I'm kicking myself because I told myself I would do this quick math earlier. Let's see what that looks like. So 75%, 1,000, 65, 350. Okay. And it looks like with this new model, the original model, I'm sorry, we're coming out to about $96 million. And so it's almost double. Quick math, let me just get the difference between those two. We are looking at about $86.5 million increase from both that price increase as well as the volume increase that's attributed due to this shortened supply. So nearly 100% increase, fantastic opportunity to increase price and take advantage of this.
Yeah. I appreciate you walking me through this. Now, what risks might the company encounter with such a dramatic price increase?
Great question. I think we might have highlighted some earlier. So my initial piece would be customer backlash. I know when I worked in the hospitality industry, we were looking at dynamic pricing and differentiated pricing, and that certainly alienated a number of customers, especially when they kind of found out about that or knew that. Dynamic pricing if storms happen or supply shrinks. So as we think about increasing the price, I imagine we might alienate that traditional customer base. Perhaps it's someone like myself that's traveling there on the weekdays for work, and I might be less inclined, or perhaps my work is going to steer me towards a different property. I also imagine the brand position might be potentially compromised. And what I'm thinking about that is if we increase our price from 350 to 500, we're already on the high end for our category. This might then start moving us into a different category. I don't think that we would all of a sudden, be in the luxury New York City hotel market. I anticipate that someone that doesn't go there, that those prices are far higher. But if it does move us into the next category, can we even compete there? Will people still want to stay at our hotels given that brand has kind of changed? I also then think about the operational risk. And I know we kind of talked about operations previously, but I think increasing capacity, this kind of goes back to our cost side. Do we have the staff and the team that's available? There's been labor shortages for the last few years in the market. So can we actually take advantage? But then also from kind of booking hotels to 100%, what if we do want to increase the volume of our property? What if we do need to take our website down for a time? How does this impact us? And then further, I suppose kind of my last point would be around regulation. We've seen rent controls in New York, but that's primarily around apartments. So would this also be potential price controls in the hotel market, especially with the shrinking? If they can go ahead and make short-term rentals illegal, can they potentially put price controls for us? And then how does that eventually impact our brand? Back to that piece.
These are all really good risks. I think, I liked how you brought in a lot of your personal experience as well as, some really recent current events. Well, we're coming to the end of time here. What is your recommendation to the client on what to do next, given this shift in the market?
Yeah. So with the initial goal from Oasis Hotels to understand the impact to the New York City hotel market and how they might respond tangibly due to 22,000 rentals being made illegal, more or less overnight, I suppose my recommendations would be short-term and long-term. From a short-term perspective, I think we should have a gradual price increase from the initial 350 to about 500. Gradually doing this will hopefully avoid alienating any customers, but also be able to take advantage of the pricing power that we have. Additionally, in short term, I think that we should be able to use digital marketing to target this core demographic to bring them into our properties. From a long-term effort, I think we should continue to monitor this market, specifically from a regulation standpoint, to make sure that nothing changes and hinders us being able to capture the opportunity. But then we should also consider a capacity expansion, i.e. being able to build more rooms and build more properties. There is risk associated with this, primarily around brand positioning. By doing so and increasing our prices, that move us into a new category where perhaps we're going to alienate existing customers and not being able to compete. There are mitigation tactics, though, that we can take. I would identify the features that overlap with the new customer base from short-term rentals, as well as our existing customer base, and be able to push that out in the digital marketing, hopefully avoiding those weaknesses that they may use to perhaps stop staying with us or alienate us. In terms of more immediate next steps, though, what we would love to do is assist you in building the targeting marketing that's going to go into this digital marketing to be able to capture this new customer base. Thank you.
Awesome. Ben, you did a great job. Thank you for helping us solve this Oasis case.
Excellent. Thank you, Maddie.
Hey everyone, it's Kenton Koveski here, the founder of Rocketblocks. Thank you so much for watching this mock interview video. I hope you found it informative and helpful as you are getting ready to prepare for your own interviews and hopefully landing that job offer you are excited about. We have a ton of great content on the Rocketblocks channel coming out on a weekly basis, mock interviews, mini lessons, and chats with our Rocketblocks experts. So if you haven't subscribed yet already, please do so. There is a big red button below. And if you hit that, you'll get all of our content as soon as it comes out. Thanks for watching and have a great day.